What happens when one of music's greatest living legends faces off against the most infamous panel in daytime TV, and everything spirals out of control? In a matter of minutes, decades of buried Hollywood frustration erupted live on national television. What was supposed to be a simple promotional stop transformed into the most explosive confrontation in The View's history, a moment that would be replayed, dissected, and talked about for years to come. The tension began the second Cher stepped onto the set. She walked in with her usual commanding presence, ready to discuss her brand new memoir, but she had no idea she was walking straight into a storm. What should have been a light celebratory chat quickly shifted into a battlefield. Cher, a seasoned performer known for fearlessly speaking truth to power, had navigated countless interviews in her career, but this one would test her like never before. At first, it all seemed routine. She settled gracefully into the guest chair, her trademark confidence practically glowing under the studio lights. The hosts greeted her with polished smiles, their scripted jokes filling the air. Joy Behar opened the conversation with what sounded like a harmless question, but beneath the sugar-coated words, there was a sharp edge. "So, Cher, you've been in this business for over 5 decades, Joy began. You've seen a lot of changes in Hollywood. Tell us how you've managed to stay relevant all these years." The word relevant hit the air like a dart. Cher caught it instantly. Her eyes narrowed, she knew that tone. She leaned back, switching seamlessly into veteran mode, the one she'd used to dismantle many hostile interviews before. "Well, Joy, I think staying authentic has been key," Cher replied, her voice calm but cutting. "I've never needed to manufacture drama or controversy for attention. My work speaks for itself." The cameras caught a flicker of unease among the hosts. Whoopi. Goldberg shifted in her seat. Sarah Haynes plastered on a tight smile. Sunny Hostin leaned in slightly. Alyssa Farah Griffin's jaw stiffened. And then, Ana Navarro, filling in as the fifth host, decided to turn up the heat. "That's interesting, Cher," she said, her tone deceptively sweet. "Because some people might say your recent social media activity has been controversial. You've been quite vocal about certain political figures." The atmosphere suddenly dropped a few degrees. Cher straightened in her chair. To those who knew her, this was a clear signal danger ahead. "I've always used my platform to speak up for what I believe in," Cher responded firmly. "If that makes people uncomfortable, that's their problem, not mine." Joy leaned forward now, her politeness slipping away like a mask. "But don't you think celebrities should stick to entertaining and leave politics to the politicians?" The condescension was undeniable. Cher felt that familiar spark ignite deep within the one she'd felt every time someone tried to silence her. She'd heard this line 1,000 times, usually from people who'd never risked their careers or faced threats for telling the truth. She didn't hesitate. "That's rich coming from a show built on political commentary," Cher shot back. "I guess it's only acceptable when the viewpoints match yours." Whoopi tried to step in, her tone dripping with patronization. "Now, Cher, we're just trying to have a conversation here." Cher leaned forward, her eyes locked like a laser. "Are we?" she challenged. "Because it feels more like an interrogation designed to make me look bad." At that point, the coordinated attack became undeniable. Sarah Haynes saw her moment and went for what she clearly thought was the knockout punch. "Well, speaking of looking bad, there have been some rumors about your personal life lately. Care to address those?" The studio fell silent. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, the kind where everyone knows something has shifted. Cher's eyes flashed with a mix of hurt and fury. She had come to promote her book, to share her story, and instead, she was being ambushed. "Excuse me?" Cher's voice was dangerously calm. "What exactly are you implying?" Sunny Hostin pushed further, her tone sharp. "We're just saying that for someone who preaches authenticity, there seem to be questions about your private relationships and business dealings." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Years of media manipulation, judgment, and scrutiny came crashing back in that moment. Cher had had enough. "You want to talk about authenticity?" Cher's voice rose, her temper finally unleashed. "Let's talk about a show that pretends to support women while tearing them down on national television." The panel tried desperately to keep their composure, but cracks appeared. Navarro's face reddened. Joy's mouth tightened. Whoopi's defense sounded shaky at best. "We're not tearing anyone down," Whoopi protested. "We're asking legitimate questions." Legitimate questions. Cher let out a bitter laugh, the kind that cuts through the air like broken glass. "You call spreading unsubstantiated rumors and questioning my integrity legitimate journalism? This is exactly the kind of toxic behavior that's destroying meaningful discourse in this country." The mood in the studio shifted from uncomfortable to openly combative. Camera operators subtly repositioned, desperate to catch every flicker of emotion. Meanwhile, producers in the control room exchanged frantic looks. They knew they were witnessing television history unfolding live. Then, Joy made the mistake that would tip everything over the edge. "Look, Cher, we understand you're passionate about your beliefs, but maybe it's time to accept that your moment has passed." The words landed like a punch to the gut. For decades, Cher had heard it all: too old, too outspoken, too much. This time, it was one insult too many. Something inside her snapped. "My moment has passed." Her voice trembled with fury, each syllable sharp as a blade. "I've been breaking barriers and fighting battles while you were still figuring out how to read a teleprompter without sounding like robots." The panel suddenly realized they'd crossed a line, but it was far too late. The confrontation that had been simmering beneath the surface was now seconds away from erupting, and the cameras were catching every millisecond. A suffocating silence fell across the studio. The only sound was the mechanical whirring of the cameras as they zoomed in on Cher's face. Her hands shook with rage, her makeup unable to mask the fire burning in her eyes. The hosts sat frozen, aware they had cornered a legend who had survived an industry that devoured people alive. Sarah Haynes, perhaps believing she could soften the blow, made a fatal error. "Cher, I think we're all getting a little heated here. Maybe we should take a breath." Cher turned to her, eyes like ice. "Don't you dare tell me to take a breath." Her voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that signals a storm. "You want to sit there and question my relevance, my integrity? Let me tell you about relevance, sweetheart. I was selling out arenas before you were even born, and I'll be doing it long after this pathetic excuse for journalism is forgotten." Ana Navarro's face twisted with indignation as she leaned forward, her tone dripping with condescension. "There's no need to get personal, Cher. We're professionals here." Cher threw her head back and laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. "Professionals?" Her laugh turned sharp. "You call this professional? Ambushing a guest with manufactured controversies and thinly veiled insults? You wouldn't know professionalism if it bit your fake personalities." The remark hit the studio like a thunderclap. Gasps rippled through the audience. The View had seen fiery moments before, but nothing like this. Whoopi stepped in, her voice stern and commanding, trying to regain control. "Okay, that's enough. We need to keep this civil." Cher's response was immediate, blazing. "Civil? Where was the civility when you were spreading rumors about my personal life? Where was the civility when you questioned my business dealings without evidence? You want to play dirty, but you can't handle it when someone fights back." Joy flushed, anger and embarrassment mixing on her face. She doubled down instead of backing off. "Maybe this is exactly why people are questioning your stability. This kind of outburst doesn't exactly scream professional icon." The words struck Cher like a slap. Her mouth opened in disbelief before her expression hardened into something fierce. She rose from her chair, towering over the panel. Her presence filled the studio with a crackling, electric tension. "My stability." Her voice was dangerously low now. "Now you want to question my stability? I've survived blacklisting, death threats, industry sexism, and decades of people trying to silence me. And you think your little Mean Girls Club is going to break me?" Sunny Hostin, emboldened by the panel's united front, delivered the most catastrophic line of all. "Well, given your history of dramatic relationships and public meltdowns, it's not exactly unreasonable." Cher's reaction was instant. "Stop right there." Her voice cracked through the studio like a whip, freezing everyone in place. "Don't you dare bring my relationships into this. Don't you dare pretend my personal life is fair game for your ratings grab." The mask had completely fallen away. The legendary performer who had kept her composure for decades was done playing nice. Her voice rose with such force that even seasoned crew members flinched. "You want to know what's unreasonable? What's unreasonable is a group of women who claim to champion female empowerment, spending their time tearing down other women for sport. What's unreasonable is pretending this is journalism when it's nothing but glorified gossip disguised as news." Ana Navarro tried one last time to ease the flames, but her attempt only poured gasoline on the fire. "Cher, we understand you're upset, but attacking us personally isn't going to." Cher cut her off, her eyes blazing and her voice booming through the studio like thunder. "Attacking me personally? You just spent the last 10 minutes attacking everything about me personally, and now you want to play the victim? The hypocrisy is staggering." Panic started to spread among the hosts. This was no longer a heated segment, it was a full-blown meltdown, and they could practically see their careers flashing before their eyes. Joy tried a desperate pivot. "Look, we're sorry if you feel we were unfair, but..." Cher's response was immediate, her voice cracking with fury. "If I feel you were unfair? There's no if about it. You ambushed me with lies and innuendo, questioned my character without evidence, and now you're gaslighting me by pretending it's all in my head." Whoopi, realizing the situation was spiraling beyond control, tried to assert some authority. "Cher, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice." Cher let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "You're going to ask me? You're going to ask me to lower my voice after you raised yours to attack me? After you all ganged up on me like vultures? The audacity is breathtaking." Sarah Haynes, visibly shaken, tears welling in her eyes from the stress, tried one final time to calm things down. "We never meant for this to get so heated. We were just trying to have a conversation." Cher's voice thundered through the studio, forcing sound engineers to scramble. "A conversation? This wasn't a conversation. This was a coordinated attack designed to humiliate me on national television. And you know the saddest part? You probably thought I'd just sit here and take it like some meek little victim." The confrontation had reached a boiling point. Cher stood tall and unyielding, her fury magnificent, facing down 5 women who had severely underestimated her. The air was so charged it felt like you could slice through it. Ana Navarro, realizing retreat was no longer an option, made one last reckless stand. "Well, if you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews." The words had barely left her lips when Cher erupted with volcanic fury. "Can't handle tough questions?" Her voice exploded, shaking the studio's very foundations. "Tough questions? You call spreading lies and manufacturing drama tough questions? You wouldn't know a tough question if it slapped you across your Botoxed faces." The panel recoiled as if struck. The raw force of Cher's voice, forged over decades of commanding massive arenas, filled every inch of the studio. Camera operators instinctively backed away. In the control room, producers sat frozen, realizing they were capturing television history in real time. Joy Behar, her face flushed crimson with anger and humiliation, made the critical mistake of trying to match Cher's intensity. "Don't you dare talk to us like that. We've been doing this show for years. Years." Cher's laugh rang out sharp, terrifying, and utterly commanding. "I've been in this business longer than all of you combined. I was breaking barriers and changing the world while you were still learning how to read cue cards. And you think your little daytime talk show gives you the right to tear me down?" Whoopi stood up, perhaps thinking her presence would settle things. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. Cher spun toward her with the full weight of her legendary authority. "Sit your ass back down, Whoopi. You, of all people, should know better. You're supposed to be the voice of reason on this show, but instead you're just another cog in their mean girl machine." The studio audience sat in stunned silence. No one dared move. The moment had become larger than the show itself. It was raw, unscripted, and unforgettable. The studio descended into absolute chaos. Security guards shifted nervously at the edges of the set, unsure whether to intervene. The hosts sat frozen like deer, caught in headlights, their polished TV personas crumbling under the relentless force of Cher's fury. Sunny Hostin, tears streaming down her face, made a desperate plea. "Cher, please, we can work this out." Cher's response came like a sonic boom. "We don't have to work this out." Her voice reached a pitch so intense that the sound engineers flinched. "There's nothing to work out. You showed me exactly who you are the moment I walked through that door. You're nothing but vultures feeding on other people's pain for your pathetic ratings." Sarah Haynes broke down completely, sobbing openly as the pressure became unbearable. Ana Navarro sat pale and frozen, visibly shaken by the wildfire she had helped ignite. The host who delivered the comment that sparked Cher's explosion looked as if she wished she could disappear into the floor. Cher seized the moment, her voice steady but booming with decades of pent-up rage. "You want to know what tough questions look like? Here's a tough question. How do you sleep at night knowing you make your living destroying other women? Here's another. What kind of example are you setting for young girls watching this show?" Joy attempted to interrupt, but Cher stopped her with a single glare, a look so cold it could melt steel. "I'm not finished." The words rang through the studio like gunshots. "You think because you sit behind that desk with your fake smiles and coordinated attacks that you're untouchable? You think you can ambush me and I'll just sit here and take it like some washed-up has-been?" Cher stepped toward the desk, her presence expanding until it dominated the room. The hosts instinctively shrank back, facing not just a guest, but a force of nature. "Let me tell you something about washed-up has-beens. I've sold over 100 million records worldwide. I've won every major award in entertainment. I've used my platform to fight for civil rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and social justice when it was dangerous to do so. What have you done besides tear down women better than you?" The silence that followed was absolute. Even the crew had stopped moving. All eyes were locked on Cher, the living legend standing there, ablaze with righteous fury, tearing away the show's polished facade and exposing its hypocrisy. Whoopi tried to interject, her voice tentative. "Cher, I think we should—" Cher cut her off, her tone now low and deadly, more terrifying than when she had shouted. "You don't get to think anything. You've done enough thinking for one day. And look where it got us." She turned her gaze directly into the cameras, addressing millions watching at home. To everyone watching at home, this is what happens when fake journalism meets real integrity. This is what happens when mediocrity tries to tear down excellence. And this, she gestured toward the trembling hosts, is what cowardice looks like when it's finally called out. The cameras caught every detail of her face, every syllable resonating like a final verdict. "I came here today to talk about my book, to share my story with people who might find inspiration in it. Instead, I walked into an ambush orchestrated by women who've forgotten what it means to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down." With remarkable poise, Cher gathered her belongings. Every movement was deliberate, regal, a sharp contrast to the chaos swirling around her. She turned to face the panel one last time. "You know the difference between me and all of you?" She paused, meeting each host's gaze. "I've never had to destroy another woman to feel good about myself. I've never had to spread lies and rumors to stay relevant. And I've never had to hide behind a desk and gang up on someone to feel powerful." Ana Navarro, realizing this was the last possible moment to salvage the wreckage, pleaded, "Cher, wait." Cher's response sliced through the air. "Wait for what? Pretend this didn't happen? Pretend you didn't just reveal your true characters on national television? The damage is done. You've shown the world exactly who you are." She walked toward the edge of the set, her figure framed by the blinding studio lights, the very image of an untouchable icon. "I've survived 5 decades in this business by being authentic, by standing up for what I believe in, and by never letting bullies silence me. You tried to break me today, but all you did was remind me why I've never backed down from a fight." With her head held high and her dignity intact, Cher turned toward the exit. The hosts sat in stunned silence, surrounded by the wreckage of their own failed ambush. At the door, she turned one last time, delivering the final blow. "Good luck explaining this to your viewers. Good luck explaining how you turned what should have been a celebration of a woman's career into a character assassination. And good luck living with yourselves, knowing the world just watched you reveal who you really are." The door closed behind her with a decisive click. The cameras kept rolling, capturing the hosts' shell-shocked faces and the thick, toxic air left in her wake. What began as a standard celebrity interview had transformed into a masterclass in power, a moment where reputations crumbled, and a legend stood taller than ever. Cher had walked into their trap and turned it into their nightmare, leaving the view to face the fallout while she emerged victorious, her integrity and status shining brighter than ever. This is the explosive finale, rewritten to read like the climax of a scandal that audiences wouldn't be able to look away from. Every moment is cinematic, structured, and emotionally charged.